Welcome everyone, and welcome back to the weekly AIHM Wellness Webinar. We're thrilled today to have with us Dr. Jaclyn Smeaton, and she'll be talking with us about ensuring quality in your supplement recommendations. So while folks are coming in to the Zoom meeting, I'll just take a couple minutes to look at, just present AIHM. If you could forward the slide, Jess. So the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine is a global interprofessional integrative health association working to transform healthcare, body, mind, spirit, community, and planet. And we are just really lucky to have so many different practitioners that are really trying to change the healthcare model to be more patient-centered and integrative. So today I want to welcome our special guest. Dr. Jaclyn Smeaton is the Vice President of Medical Education for Emerson Ecologics. She has served as the President of the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians and the New Hampshire Association of Naturopathic Doctors. She served on the boards of the Integrative Healthcare Policy Consortium and the American Herbal Products Association. And we're also just so thankful for Emerson Ecologics and being one of our main sponsors for AIHM, and really looking forward to your presentation today, Jaclyn.
Thanks so much, Tabitha, and welcome everyone. Let me just go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so hopefully you are seeing my screen now. Give me just 1 second to get in slideshow mode. So this is a topic. Can you see me okay? We good?
Yes, we see you perfectly. Looks great.
Excellent. So this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad that you had the interest in attending today, because I think some practitioners, when they think about dietary supplement quality, it feels a little bit like a snooze topic. But the fact of the matter is that it's extremely relevant, and it matters a lot for your practice that you have great quality supplements in your practice. So we're going to spend some time talking today. Hopefully you pick up a little bit of my love for this topic area and you learn a couple of things as well. So let's talk first about the anatomy of a supplement. What do I mean when I say dietary supplement? So according to the National Institute of Health's Office of Dietary Supplements, a dietary supplement is a product that is meant to supplement the diet. It can contain vitamins, minerals, herbs, botanicals, amino acids, or quote unquote other ingredients, which are still intended to be naturally derived. This would be something like an animal glandular material, like your pituitary hormone or even thyroid gland, things like that. Products that largely are rooted in the food supply, but they're employed for uses other than just caloric sustenance is a good way to think about it. But they do have to be like existing in the food supply in order to qualify as a dietary supplement. It can't be a synthetic, and it has to be something that is intended not to necessarily supplement for nutrition. So if you look at protein powders, for example, some will be classified as a supplement intended to supplement the diet, and ones that are a meal replacement may actually have a like a nutrition facts box on them instead of a dietary supplement facts box. So that's something that's kind of interesting for you to pay attention to. So the other thing about a dietary supplement, we talked about what it can include. The other piece of it is that it has to be ingested. Okay, so it can be any form, but it has to be intended that you would, put it in your mouth and swallow it. This means that it's mostly going to be tablets, capsules, powders, and liquids, maybe a gummy, things like that. Those are all okay. But things that are sublingual, not okay. Okay, not okay as a dietary supplement to be labeled, because that's not intended to be swallowed. It's intended to be absorbed through the oral mucosa. So this is a change that happened in the marketplace a couple of years ago. And you may have noticed that your favorite drops for like a sublingual B vitamin tablet is now just called a B vitamin tablet. And the instructions for use say, put under your tongue for 1 minute, then swallow. Okay, so they're really trying to clarify that you have to swallow. Okay, so you won't see things labeled sublingual anymore. That doesn't mean you can't use them that way clinically, but when they label a product as sublingual, technically by law, it turns it into a drug by adding that word. So you'll see that that was mostly stripped from products. The next kind of category of stuff is like injections or IV therapies. So we have things like IV glutathione or injectable B vitamins. This is not considered a supplement. As soon as you take it out of the oral route of administration, it becomes a drug, okay? Not ingested. Also inhaled. We have nebulized glutathione, a lot of herbs through inhalers. It's considered a drug, even if its ingredient aligns with the dietary supplement origin. And then same with transdermal or topical products. If you have herbal patches, those technically are medical devices by law. Those are not intended to be taken orally, so they can't be labeled as a supplement. So you have kind of two things that make up a supplement. One is that it has to be put in your mouth and swallowed. The other is that it has to contain these kind of naturally derived ingredients that we've listed there on the left-hand side. The other one that I haven't put on this list is suppositories. Herbal suppositories were really popular, and there were some that were commercially available. Again, not a dietary supplement. Those had to be relabeled as an over-the-counter drug. Okay, let's talk a little bit about dietary supplement usage. So believe it or not, 76% of Americans use dietary supplements. That was from 2017, and the number is going up. It was only 64% use back in 2007. This is when it looks at the data of usage, keep in mind, we're talking about not just ones that practitioners recommend, but ones that consumers utilize that they purchase themselves in the marketplace. So not surprisingly, about 98% of supplements used are vitamins and minerals. The most popular ones are listed on the left here. 73% a multivitamin, 37% take vitamin D, vitamin C, calcium, and then a B complex were the most popular. And then we look on the right-hand table here, you know, female and male supplement users do tend to have some different reasons why they choose to take supplements. By and large, the largest reason people take it is for their overall health and wellness benefits. But then when you look at female users, they lean heavier towards using supplements to fill nutrient gaps and then also to support their bone health. Whereas men take them more commonly for energy, heart health, immune support, and then also to fill nutrient gaps. So a little bit of a different usage there. So what are consumers utilizing? Now, when we break this down a little bit further, we can see that kind of in the specialty category of supplements, you have a lot of fatty acids like fish oil, probiotics, fiber, melatonin, and then joint support like glucosamine. When we look in the category of botanicals and herbals, the most popular are listed here. I was actually surprised to learn that green tea was the most commonly purchased botanical supplement, because I think of people as drinking green tea, but not as much as taking green tea extract over things like garlic or echinacea or things that are a little lower on this table. When it comes to sports nutrition, you have a lot of sales of protein powders and energy drinks, hydration drinks, electrolytes, things like that. And on the weight management side, again, a lot of protein powders, and then some of the specialty ingredients that get marketed for the purposes of weight loss support. So you can see some of the way some of these categories break down. Oh, I'm so sorry about this look here. I can kind of talk you through this, although if you look to the right-hand side, you'll see a little bit more of the specific details of what should be in that pie chart there. So what I'm trying to break down for you here is on the top graph, the breakdown of supplement sales by category. So like I mentioned, the majority is vitamins and minerals, and they've still been growing quite rapidly. Although if you look at the growth rates on the right-hand chart, herbs and botanicals and sports supplements have actually been the fastest growing categories. I think a lot of that comes from the interest in adrenal support, where we're seeing a lot more herbs come into the marketplace, and certainly sports and wellness. And then we look at the sales by channel. This is so tough to see with those labels. I'm so sorry about that. However, what I wanted to show you, the biggest piece of that is that the majority of supplement sales right now are in still the mass market retail. That's the upper left kind of teal pie, biggest piece of that bottom pie. And that would be like your Costco, Walmart, Target, you know, those big mass retail locations. And then the upper right-hand corner, kind of the soft light green, is your internet channel. And that's really been the fastest growing channel over the last 5 years. as just e-commerce has, bust into our lives in new and crazy ways. Other channels that people are buying supplements include mail order. We were actually watching a cable news channel the other night, and it was full of supplements being advertised on TV where you call the number, you place the order. Certainly a little bit of a different market of customers than those who are seeking out integrative healthcare practitioners. There's also the MLM or network marketing channel, the multi-level marketing channel, which has always been popular in the supplement space, although not so rapidly growing today. And then the practitioner channel is on there. And the practitioner channel actually only makes up about 8% or 9% of the overall supplement market. So we are small, we are the small way. However, over the last 5 years, the only two of these areas that have been really growing have been the internet and the the practitioner market. So more and more people are interested in integrative medicine. So let's talk a little bit about why regulation matters for your practice. First of all, you want to make sure that you have consistency in the recommendations, that lot to lot, when patients are taking the same product, you're going to get a similar effect, a predictable effect. You want consistency there. And you also want to make sure they're very high quality. Now, from my perspective, our job as clinicians is to make sure that we ask the right questions, we reach the right diagnosis, and from that diagnosis, we help to select the right therapeutics for that patient. But we don't want to have to layer on the worry that the products have in them what they say they do. Unfortunately, sometimes we still have to, or we have to be the responsible steward to show our patients why they need to make sure they're using really good quality brands. Now, we'll talk a little bit about a few examples, but there are issues with potency, identity, contaminants, and allergens. So potency means that the dose on the label is accurate. Okay, this was a big issue with vitamin D a number of years ago, where some products had anywhere from 1% to 1,000% of the label claim of vitamin D. Huge variation in potency due to just difficulty with that ingredient in manufacturing. Identity, this is a real hot topic right now, especially with botanicals. One example that's kind of in the marketplace right now is elderberry. So there's only so much elderberry in the marketplace. And when we get this massive demand for more immune support products due to something like a global pandemic, the market can only tolerate and produce so much of that botanical. Our plants only grow so much every year. And if you plant new elderberry plants, it takes 3 to 5 years for them to mature and bear fruit where you can really harvest. So that's a lot of lead time. So what ingredient sellers were doing was they were cutting their elderberry with other ingredients. So some of the ones that have been found in the marketplace, not necessarily harmful things, but blueberry or black rice extract, things that will, on the analytical chemistry method called HPTLC that they utilize, will look like elderberry. It has those same purple pigments, right? Or one that can kind of trick the eye or trick the methodology to test. But the problem is it's a sub-potent product. And when we're giving them to patients with an expectation that they're going to work, it's very difficult to have that happen when the product is sub-potent, plus the fact that it harms the entire industry and our entire profession when there are supplements out there that don't work. It makes us look bad that we're putting our trust in those. Contaminants, another common area. One example is arsenic in rice products. So it has hit the food market and the supplement world, from everything from like rice milk to rice-based protein powders, just because it's naturally occurring, but it needs to be tested for and removed. And then allergens as well. Sometimes there could be cross-contamination in the manufacturing facility or undisclosed ingredients that can be harmful or cause a potential allergic reaction for patients. The other thing we really want to make sure as clinicians is that the products we use have ingredients that are science-backed and have formulas that are going to really work. So quality is key. So there are really 4 things that go into dietary supplement regulation and dietary supplement quality. The first is that companies have to have very good manufacturing standards. The second is that we want to make sure their labels are fully accurate and that the claims they make, they can substantiate with research. The third is making sure the ingredients they use are safe. And then the fourth, which is an aftermarket process, is making sure that we're still tracking things like adverse event reporting and processing recalls when they need to happen. So there's really four big kinds of quality issues that come up in the dietary supplement space. The first are issues with manufacturing. This is really why you have companies why the FDA requires what's called CGMP compliance, okay? We wanna make sure that the manufacturing facility is operating in a way that's clean and predictable. Manufacturing errors could lead to things like potency being incorrect. Many ingredients, I put the vitamin D as the example, and I mentioned Hefe-4, when they buy them, they're very, very concentrated. So a small amount of an ingredient gets added to a barrel with all the other ingredients and then blended in. And if the wrong measurements are taken, or if the equipment to measure is not calibrated properly, you can get differences in potency from lot to lot. There also can be degradation of ingredients. Moisture and heat and time are the biggest issues there, but once an ingredient degrades, maybe it's exposed to high heat, like a probiotic, it won't work anymore, and utilizing that would be an error. And then the last are contamination, microbes or allergens, and this happens in food, it happens in supplements, so you really need a good manufacturer to make sure those don't happen. The second piece, the intentional and economic adulteration we see a lot of right now in the industry. Remember that when it comes to ingredients, the supply chain is global. Okay, I actually attended a great lecture from McCormick Spices. He was the head of supply chain for McCormick, which is like a culinary spice company. We probably all have their spices in our cabinet somewhere, or have in the past. Now, it was so interesting to hear because they've been using plant-based substances in a marketplace setting much longer than the dietary supplement industry in its modern form has been around. And they really talked about the globalization of the supply chain and how now even a company as large as McCormick, billions of dollars, they have intermediaries between them and the growers. And so there's a lot of places where things can be modified. Okay, and there's also a black market for supplement ingredients that are completely counterfeit, right? So you have to be very wary of that. Some examples that we've seen that are very actively happening in the marketplace are that dietary supplement ingredients are sometimes cut with drugs. So the biggest risk areas for these are weight loss, sexual enhancement, and bodybuilding, where you might find testosterone ingredients, sexual performance ingredients like sibutramine or sildenafil. They measure these in supplements, okay, that they actually kind of dope the supplement up with a drug to try to get a stronger effect. Also, I mentioned the elderberry issue. This has happened before. There was a big one of bilberry being cut with blueberry. So cheaper ingredients, not necessarily harmful, but cheaper and not effective being added to the ingredient that you're looking for. There's also been instances where things have been added to boost nutrient content. Melamine was one example, which is a kind of an inedible toxic product, but got added to pet food because it would boost the crude protein content. So that's something the supplement market monitors when it comes to any protein-contained ingredients. And the fourth would be, and this is something that I see in the consumer space all the time, you probably have as well, when a cheaper plant part gets used. So I'll give you the example of echinacea. If you go into a pharmacy, or you go into your own dispensary and you look at echinacea products, they probably are going to contain echinacea root, which is the most potent part of the plant, okay, with the different compounds and constituents you want that are going to help to boost that immune function. If you go to, CVS, or you go to a lower cost product set, what you're probably going to see is a blend of everything, where it will say whole plant, or it won't specify, which means it could be whole plant. Or you might see what's called aerial parts, or leaves, or flowers. So if it's not the root, they may have some of the active constituents, and it's not false, it's not misleading, but they're using a plant part that's cheaper, but not as effective. So you as a clinician need to be the smart little sleuth and detective to make sure you're using the best product. Ingredient and supply chain verification is really the hottest area for quality right now. We believe that about 80 to 85% of our quality issues come down to verifying the supply chain, okay? The biggest area of true risk, and that's because between farmer and your bottle, or manufacturer in your bottle, for the case of vitamins, there are usually a lot of hands that it transfers through. So there's a lot of opportunity for contamination, adulteration, et cetera. And then another one that will really affect your practice is claims. Okay, and this is the area that the FDA spends the most time on. Marketing a product inappropriately will legally change the classification of the product. This is by far the area the FDA is taking the biggest hit with, and it's because it's just so easy. It's like fishing. They just have to go online, go on the internet, look at websites for products, and see how companies are marketing. You'll see egregious examples where they might be marketing a product to cure cancer or something like that. If you make claims that a product prevents or treats or cures a disease, then that technically turns the product into a drug, even if it could be classified as a dietary supplement. We see this a lot with immune support products. If it says, lowers the duration of the common cold, things like that, you can't make claims like that when you're selling a product. You can talk about it in research when you're talking about ingredients, but if you're a seller, then you're not allowed to make claims like that. So there's a couple of places that we really apply that quality assessment piece. The first one, and where it's very, very important, is when we look at raw ingredients, or raw materials is what it's called in the industry. So what's really important here is finding sources of raw materials that you really trust. And then on top of that, you verify. We say trust, but verify. Find a trusted supplier, build a great relationship, and then you need to at least occasionally be testing that product in addition to the testing that's done by the ingredient manufacturer to make sure that it is what it says it is to be, okay? I've listed some of the methods that are used below. If you want to get into the science, I'm happy to do that on the questions, but that's kind of getting into the technical pieces that most people kind of start to glaze over. It brings you back to all of your analytical chemistry classes if you did that as an undergrad. But some of the things that are really important to look at are, how does a company choose the suppliers they buy from? Okay, how do they choose? Is it just the lowest cost? And is that really the best way to get good quality? Or are there other factors that they utilize? Okay, what are the specifications that the brand has for each ingredient? You might not ask every single question around that, but for certain herbs, for example, you might want to see that brands care what the constituent profile looks like, because that could show you that it was harvested at the right time, it was grown in the right conditions, and that it's going to be consistent from lot to lot. You want to ask how they test. Some of these testing types, like IR and IR, that is a high throughput method. It's lower cost to do, but it's easier to trick, but it's cheaper and it can go much quicker. Whereas doing something like HPLC or HPPLC, it takes more time. It's a little bit more finicky and difficult to get good results, but it's harder to fool. And so that can be a better test in some instances as well. And then we also ask a lot about testing frequency. The FDA does not require that every batch of ingredients is tested for everything. They require that identity and microbial contamination be tested on every single lot, but other things like heavy metals or other types of contamination, even potency, doesn't need to be tested on every single lot. Brands can test every fifth lot, every third lot, whatever they build out as the right rationale. Okay, the next column, that middle column, manufacturing processes, this is where the current good manufacturing practices, or CGMPs, come in. And there is a law about this. There's about 1,000 pages, maybe 2,000 pages of regulations around this. If you ever want to look it up, you can see it here, CFR Part 111. And this requires that brands have written SOPs in place, that they hire qualified staff, they have training processes, they audit, the plant is sanitized and their sanitation procedures, et cetera. And so this would be something that you could go in and audit a brand's SOPs, for example, to make sure they have processes in place to make sure they're doing things correctly. And then the third and final piece that you'd be looking at for quality is what companies do with their finished product. Finished product means the product exactly as you'd buy it off the shelf, okay? So brands, the best brands will do testing on their finished products. They'll test things like potency. They'll test again for contaminants to make sure that all of their uncontaminated ingredients didn't get contaminated in the manufacturing process. They'll also do things like test the stability of the product. which is what brands need to do in order to put an expiration date on. They need to prove that that product will be shelf stable and still have in it what it says it does by its expiration date. Again, there's lots of different methods here and different considerations around the method used and the frequency of testing. The best brands really, they're testing for all of the relevant factors at some point in the process. Most of the time it comes at the raw material phase because brands don't want to invest. You'd want to screen for heavy metals, for example, before you use an ingredient, before you blend it with other things and then find out it's contaminated at the end of the line. Then you've wasted so much time and effort in other ingredients. So most of that stuff happens at that raw material phase. Also, just a heads up before we transition, I just heard my daughter wake up. She's home because her daycare closed with a COVID exposure. So my apologies if you hear her chit-chatting in the background, or you never know, she could pop in because that's just the day that we live in right now, right? So why does dietary supplement quality matter in your practice? First of all, it matters for your patient outcomes. I'll just give you a personal story. This is before I started working with Emerson. I was in full-time family practice, very busy practice. And I inherited this practice from my other doctor. And there was a patient that the other doctor had been seeing for maybe 5 or 6 years who was bipolar and was doing extraordinarily well on the protocol that he was on. And maybe about a year into me seeing him, he was doing so phenomenally well, he came in and he'd really had a downturn. And we couldn't really figure out why. His life circumstances hadn't changed. Nothing really had changed. His lifestyle hadn't shifted. And so I started to dig into the supplements that he was taking, and we went through, the list looks the same. So then I had him actually bring in the supplements that he was taking. And one of the products that he was on, the main ingredient was a St. John's wort ingredient. He had gone out and sourced a different brand that time that was cheaper. He'd found a different product, heard something good about it. So when I said, oh, this one, is different, when we put him back on the original formula, which was slightly more expensive, he immediately improved and got back to baseline. But he had really severe changes and a big downswing when he swapped brands out for a cheaper brand. So that's an example where that must have been either the wrong plant part or not as potent of a plant. And he had such a big, profound impact. And I see that more and more with herbals. I think with herbals, it's really the right place to talk to your patients about making sure they're getting a really good quality product. You also should care about quality for your patient safety. You think about something like microbial contamination, and when it hits the market in lettuce or something like that, could you imagine if you had recommended a product that ended up being contaminated with heavy metals, with microbes, with something that actually harmed your patient? That would be horrific. And so against everything that we stand for in our own practices. So knowing about quality and being responsible with quality is essential so that you don't cause harm. It's like a fundamental piece of what we do. And when we utilize supplements, they are FDA regulated, but there's also a lot of kind of windows of opportunity for poorer quality products to make it to the marketplace. So you've got to really, if you're going to be giving these to patients therapeutically, you've got to make sure you're using the right stuff. Patient cost is another one, and return on investment. So I'll give you just a clinical example here with fish oil. So the fish oil that I love to use in my own practice, it costs about $50 for a 60-day supply, okay? And that's giving about 2 grams per day of EPA plus DHA, but the bottle's not cheap, right? And so I have a lot of patients who, and this happened, now I proactively educate, but I would have patients who were like, you're giving me this 60 soft gel bottle for $50, but I went to Costco and I found these giant bottles that each have 300 soft gels, and they're buy one, get one free for 20 bucks each. So I just bought those, and I've been taking 1 a day of those instead of 1 a day of what you gave to me. And then it takes that education to say, okay, read the back of the bottles here. So 1 soft gel equals, 1,000 milligrams of EPA plus DHA. How much EPA plus DHA are in each soft gel of the other one that you bought that cost less? And in the case of one patient I was thinking of, it was like 80 milligrams. So I said, okay, well, just to level set, in order to get the dose you need, you actually have to take 12 of these a day versus 1 a day of this, right? But to the patient, their view was they were the same size soft gel, one soft gel of this to one soft gel of this. Why is there such a price differential? I'm going to just buy the cheaper stuff. But the return on investment, they wouldn't be getting a benefit from that. And the other piece of it is it's probably still, even with lower dosing, a lesser quality oil, potential rancidity, et cetera. Okay. So your practice reputation is a reason why. You want to minimize any legal risk. For example, if you sold a product that you were unaware was contaminated, that could still be liability to you because you'd be responsible for that. And to just be ethical, to make sure that the care you're giving is going to be effective. So first and foremost, your duty is to patient care, okay? Dietary supplement shopping and being a quality expertise, you have to have a little bit of that knowledge to make sure that you're doing a good job with patient care. But if recommending dietary supplements is part of the care you provide, you have to ensure that what you recommend is high quality. That's the only way you're going to get good outcomes, okay? If your patient doesn't get better on the plan that you put them on, I want you to rethink your diagnosis. I want you to make sure that the treatment plan you build is evidence-based. But hopefully you can scratch that final question off of, do the products in them, the products I gave that patient, have in them what they say they have, okay? And you can do that by making sure you're getting good quality brands. The other thing that I think is so interesting to think about, and I don't have any data on this, but it's really been on my mind a lot lately, is that we depend upon this evidence base that we want to build over time, right? We want more studies to come out. We want more clear evidence-based information that would help us do a better job making recommendations. We want to know what works in clinical trials that we can apply in our practice. And it's a big part of validating what we do, but it's very likely that a lot of the research could be being done on low quality products. One example, black cohosh for menopause. It's really interesting when you look at the data because some studies show very high efficacy. Other studies show very low efficacy. And this is all older data, but what's interesting is that maybe 5 or 10 years after the big push for data there, we realized a lot of the black cohosh in the market, which is mostly wildcrafted, was the wrong plant. That for a long period of time, people were wildcrafting the wrong plant and putting it into dietary supplements, thinking that it was black cohosh. Now, and that's, at the time, the main way that herbs were identified was visual inspection. So an herbalist would examine the plant in its whole form, say, yep, this looks right, and then it would be dried and ground up or whatever, utilized. Now, when they started doing more analytical chemistry to add on to that visual inspection, they call it organoleptic testing, which is looking at it, smelling it, and tasting it, essentially. Skilled herbalists are great at this. But when they overlaid analytical chemistry, they found that not all plants were what they thought they were. So when you look back at the research we're depending on, it's very interesting. What if some of the research was done on the wrong plant? And we don't know, and we probably could never know because those lots don't get preserved that long. So dietary supplement quality also has an effect on integrative medicine, period, because it's a matter of the legitimacy of the research that we're depending on. There's the ethical pieces as well. Okay, patients trust you to make a care plan that's going to help them and not do harm. Okay, and there is a documented risk of harm in the retail dietary supplement industry, particularly when people are price shopping and going for the lowest price product. Okay, the other ethical piece that you need to think about is if you tell your patient, I want you to take rhodiola, and then you send them to the store to find their own rhodiola, you're essentially putting them in the hands of the sales clerk to help them try to find a good quality product and even find the right product. I find a lot of salespeople might shift them away from your recommendation and give them something different that was maybe on sale or they got a bigger commission on, et cetera. So as healthcare practitioners, we have a responsibility to demand evidence-based quality from the brands we buy from, to demand transparency in quality practices, and to make sure that we're using quality as a differentiator in product selection. The next is the legal considerations for your practice. Could you be held liable for recommending a poor quality product if it caused harm? Yes, you probably could when it was part of a treatment plan. Or another thing that I'm seeing a lot of is bigger practices clinicians are actually starting to make their own private label brands. And I would just say, if you're doing that, make sure you fully understand the legal implications associated with that, with your name being on the bottle. The brands that I know of, high quality brands, but the brands that I know of who are doing this, like white labeling for practitioners, the agreements are written in such a way where that brand is very protected, okay? And the practitioner can be kind of held out with a lot of responsibility legally. And also, as soon as you put your name on the bottle, you become a brand regulated by the FDA as well. So some of the protections you have as a clinician from a one-to-one perspective with your patients goes away. Okay, you are now considered a commercial brand holder. Okay, so let's move on to like, what do you do from here? So how do you evaluate a new brand to see if you should be using them? Well, I want to try to make this simple because it's complex. Like, we evaluate the brands for Emerson. It takes 6 months. We do on-site audits. We do so much. I know you can't all do that. You don't have time, but there are some things that you can do that will help you determine whether a brand is good quality or not. So first, visit the website. I would look for things like, are they making claims on products that aren't allowed by the FDA? So if a brand is saying like, this treats the flu or use this to prevent cancer, this will lower your cholesterol. If they're making direct treatment claims, that puts up a red flag for me. And the reason why is that if they don't know enough to know how they can market their products legally, they probably don't know enough about manufacturing a good quality product either, okay? Other thing, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. My mom has told me that since I was a child. It's absolutely correct in dietary supplements as well. And then I also see, are they transparent with information? Do they clearly disclose all ingredients? So one example is the other ingredients or inactive ingredients. There's got to be at least a couple there. They all have some. Maybe a powder may not, but most brands will still have some inactive ingredients. You should be looking to see things on there to make sure that they're being fully transparent. Next, are they CGMP certified? So when I talked about that middle category of manufacturing quality, most quality brands will seek a third party to certify them for CGMP, okay? So those companies come in and they audit the manufacturing process. They're very thorough, and they give them the stamp of approval. On the left-hand side here, I've listed some of the seals that you might see that are legitimate third-party certifications. NSF in the United States is by far the most popular. Natural Products Association, or NPA, UL, which you'll see they do even like electrical things. They do everything, but they're an auditing company. And then TGA is another one that you see. It's actually, it's the Australian FDA, but they'll do audits for even American companies. On the right-hand side, these are some CGMP seals that are not real, okay? You'll see these actually come from labels that I found, and it's the brand doing their own marketing that says, you know, certified CGMP. It doesn't say who certified them, but they're putting that on there, or just that CGMP stamp that just says current good manufacturing practices. But that's their own self-claim. They're not third-party certified. You have to look for one of the ones on the left-hand side. Next, are they able to sell to practitioners and to the public? So check the business model, okay? I found that when I first opened my doors as a naturopathic physician, I was targeted so heavily by people in my community who were part of a multi-level marketing company and wanted me to sell under them. And that's okay, it's not illegal. It's not necessarily a statement on quality, but make sure you understand and you feel comfortable with the business model of the companies that you're working with. And then the other thing that I recommend you do is search FDA warning letters. This is really quick. If you put in FDA dietary supplement warning letters, you can get to a search box where you can search them for keywords like brand owners. There's also this website I've put on here for you. That's a list of products that have been found to be tainted by the FDA. And if the company has a warning letter, that might not be a non-negotiable thing for you, but read what happened. So for example, there are some really good companies that have argued with the FDA over whether their product is a medical food or a supplement, dietary supplement, a category of product. If you read it, there was never a quality issue. It's just that the way it was marketed, they disagreed on, or maybe they made claims on the website that were kind of iffy, but not egregious, like read what it was. But if it was a sanitation issue, or that they failed to qualify the ingredients they were buying, you know, then that's when you'd say, okay, should I be concerned about this? Okay. This is just a photo of the tainted products list. A lot of the ones you'll see in here, you can see here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the product category here, it's like all sexual enhancement and weight loss, okay, and what they found. So the FDA is testing these high-risk areas, and you can see all the drugs they're finding in these products. A lot of these, they're not typically sold in the practitioner channel. These are ones that you'll find at like gas stations and stuff like that. The practitioner channel, we're very cautious about what products we'll take on in these categories, and they have to be doing extensive testing, even for these ingredients, to make sure that they're not contaminated. So if you've passed through all those kind of quick checks, the next thing would be to reach out to the company directly. These are just some of the questions you might want to ask them. How do you test the materials? How frequently? What are you testing for? Do you test every single lot, or do you do skip lot testing? How do you determine how frequently a product should be tested? You know, how do you source herbs? Is it sourced sustainably? What do you do to check for contamination? You know, here's just some examples that you can keep the slide deck after the presentation and have this as a little list for yourself. So I know it can feel really complex, which is one of the reasons why we put together the Emerson quality program, was we wanted to make it super easy for practitioners. Okay, we know practitioners have a responsibility for quality, and actually a lot of the brands we sell go above and beyond what the FDA requires. So the EQP is here to support you. This is the Emerson quality program. This is one of my projects that I manage at Emerson in partnership with our head of quality. And what we look for is making sure that brands that are in the program, they have evidence-based quality assessments. They make their quality practices transparent. They verify quality on an ongoing basis, and that it makes sure that this information is all easily available to you. We do this, meaning our team, we make it available to every brand. That we have about 375 brands right now. Every brand is invited to participate in the EQP. We have just under 40 who are members, and that's because it's a lot of effort to be in the program. It doesn't cost them anything. We pay everything for it, but it's a lot of effort and transparency and communication. So the first thing we do is that we do a questionnaire. The questionnaire we require for every brand that we sell. This makes sure that the brand meets the FDA requirements for quality. But for brands who want to do the EQP, we go on to a deeper documentation audit. This is generally about a 5 to 6 month audit process where we read through all their SOPs. We look at all of their manufacturing records. We check even look at resumes for employees that got hired for a job to make sure they have the right qualifications. It's deep. The next phase is that we do product testing. We have 5 labs across the country with different specialties that we qualified that act on our behalf, and we ship the product out of our distribution center to those labs. We test the products to make sure they're pure and they meet the label claim. And if brands pass through all that, then we go on site to their manufacturing facility, and we actually do an audit on site at their facility. And then every quarter, we do additional testing of their products once they're admitted into the program as a way to requalify. And every 2 years, we go back on site to do a full audit. So it takes a ton of time. We're super proud of the program, but we want to make sure we make it as easy as possible for you guys to know good brands. There's really 3 areas we look for. The first is current good manufacturing practices. I kind of reviewed what those were, making sure their facility is clean and they have procedures that make sense and that they follow those procedures. The second is we spend a ton of time, probably the most time, on how they qualify ingredients. How do they make sure they're buying good quality ingredients, and how do they test them? And then the third is what do they do with finished products to make sure that they're not contaminated and they're very good quality. So those are really the 3 key areas that we look at, but there's a lot that gets looked at in the audit process. And so Emerson has over, like I said, 380 brands now. When you're shopping on the website, you'll see that these gold and silver seals on some of the product pages, meaning that we've evaluated that brand and they're a proud partner of ours. So when you're doing this kind of quality checklist, if you're not leveraging the EQP and you're doing this for yourself, these are some of the things that you might want to be asking yourself. Is the brand third-party certified for CGMP? Do they make products that make sense based upon clinical research studies? Does the dosing make sense? Does the design make sense? One example might be if you found a vitamin C product in the store with 25 milligrams. You know, vitamin C works in the gram dosing, not milligram dosing. So you'd say, okay, this is probably not a great quality brand if they're trying to make money selling such a low dose. I also love when companies conduct research on their own products. That's very, very rare. Sometimes they use ingredients that are researched, but when brands are investing usually hundreds of thousands of dollars on research on their own products, that's also a great sign. And then we talked about the testing and the claims on the label already. Okay, let's briefly, as we wrap up, talk a bit about how to dispense. So if you're using supplements, you have the option to have a dispensary in your clinic where you have the physical bottles. There's an online dispensary option like Wellevate. You could have your own brand or your own private label, or you could essentially refer to a health food store or a website for patients to buy. With Emerson, we love when we call it a balanced dispensary. And we think that works really well, where you might have an in-office dispensary that's smaller for either products that you use all the time or things that you might need right away. So for example, if you were in a general practice, when I was in general practice, I always had things like cranberry and mannose, which I would utilize for patients with any kind of urinary support required. I'd have those in office. A probiotic I'd have in office. Immune support I'd have in office. That way, if patients came in for something, they could walk out with what they needed right away, because waiting 2 days to ship would be 2 uncomfortable days, or I'd want them to start right away. And then I would use an online dispenser, or I use Wellevate in my practice for those other products that are not so time sensitive. Okay, but if you're dispensing, it's a great way to retain your business. An online dispensary can really help a lot with refills, and we have the statistics to back that up. It can help you grow your practice because it brings in additional revenue sources, and it really makes it easy so you can focus more on patient care instead of having to do, inventory management for your in-office dispensary. I think I'm going to kind of wrap here. We can spend because I think there might be some questions that come up. Dr. Parker, do we have a lot of questions, or should I kind of continue with the final slides?
We have a couple questions. I think you could probably finish up, and then we could take those questions.
Wonderful. So if you are using in-office, if you want to purchase products for an in-office dispensary, you'd use Emerson Ecologics. Emerson's been around over 40 years. And what we do is we have this whole catalog of products that you can buy from. You pay wholesale pricing, and you stock as much or as little as you want in your own office, okay? This is great to offer products to patients who prefer to shop in person. You can send patients home with products right away, or a lot of practitioners use what's called drop ship, where you shop, you put the items in your cart, but you can add your patient's address as a shipping address. And when you check out, you have your addresses, and then you can add patients' addresses too, that you could ship it to them to drop ship it. So that would be great if you didn't have it in stock, or some people actually manage their dispensary that way. Okay, we give you free shipping on any order of $250 or more. And again, when you're shopping the catalog, the EQP program is very apparent. If you choose to go virtual, you would use Wellevate. So Wellevate is our virtual dispensary. I use this for my practice now exclusively. It's awesome. You can do a variety of things. You can have your patients go in and use it almost like an online store. And with that, you can either allow them to buy anything that's allowed through the Wellevate catalog, or you can build a dispensary of your favorites and limit them to shop just what's in your favorites. But we also have this patient app, which makes it so easy for patients. If you build a recommendation, because you can build a whole treatment plan within Wellevate, including handouts, notes, even assessments we're starting to include in there that you can send to a patient and the product they need. They would get a pop-up on their phone. They click a button, it drops them into a cart so they can check out. They can view their whole treatment plan there. They can view the handouts that you've given them. So it's a really awesome experience. And it's really the easiest way for practitioners to dispense. You don't pay any money up front. That you basically pay a percentage of the sale to Wellevate. But it's awesome. And we really see a lot of patients stay on their refills longer when doctors make it easier for patients to access them through Wellevate. This is just an example of the recommendation screen when you're building. So you would add a patient's name. You can type a note in. You can add attachments. You can add products right here. And you also can add a protocol. You'll see it says save as protocol. So if there are protocols you use a lot, like for me, I do fertility. So I have my favorite like sperm motility protocol. I can start there and it dumps all of my favorites in there and then I can edit from there. So it makes it super fast to build recommendations. And really you could send one in like 2 clicks. It's pretty incredible. This is our protocol library. So on top of being able to make your own protocols, which you can see this tab, My Protocols, we also, Emerson experts, have stocked our own protocols as well. So some of them come from the Emerson medical team, which is made up by myself. We have a dietitian, an herbalist, and naturopathic physicians on our team. We've also had chiropractors on the team, so we build some, but you'll see others, like here's a mood support protocol that Dr. Eamon provided for us, cleanse protocol from Dr. Nidro. So we have probably about 100 protocols in here from thought leaders. So there's some really, really awesome ones in here that you could explore. The patient experience I alluded to, really easy with Wellevate. When they go to log in, everything is your logo. Okay, so this would be your name and email and phone number, your logo here. When they log in, again, everything is your information. So we really want the experience to be like it's your clinic. Wellevate is in the background. They're not buying from Wellevate, they're buying from you. The invoice has your information on it. And really we're there to kind of facilitate things behind the scenes. That's about it. I mean, thank you so much. We love working with the team at AIHM. I'm personally a member and a fellow, or a student, or a fellow right now. So really just very proud of AIHM and the work you guys are doing. And we really are truly proud to be a partner.
Thank you so much, Jaclyn. And I just want to say the feeling's mutual. You know, one of our goals is really just to provide tools to our membership community and clinicians to make their world and life easier. And Wellevate is just such an amazing tool for that. So I really appreciate all the work that Emerson has done over the years to build, you know, these tools for clinicians. It's really wonderful. So we have a couple of questions. One is just a question around the term HPLC that you used. What does that mean? It was in around the quality.
Thank you. Yeah, so that stands for high pressure liquid chromatography. So there's all these different analytical chemistry methods, but it's almost like a column method. So a chromatogram, you might have seen them for one thing or another in the news even, but it would show multiple columns side by side and then these little bars of different colors or strengths or darknesses. And what happens is they use that a lot with botanicals. You would put a sample in and they run it with a carrier fluid that separates out different constituents based upon polarity, molecular weight, things like that. So it shows kind of this spread along a column. So it's a way to get almost a chemical profile of a group of compounds.
Great. Another question just from our chat is, can you speak to, or what do you think about consumer labs or the natural medicine database? Are those, you know, spaces that can help clinicians in your, you know, in this area?
So I think that a lot of those can be really helpful. Keep in mind, they're not necessarily unbiased. So Consumer Labs runs a business based on advertising. And so there have been like disclosures made, and I've heard things from brands who've been invited to participate or invited to pay Consumer Labs that either their products won't be tested unless they pay and they won't be featured in the magazine, or that you might have a different remediation process if you do pay in. So you just have to take those things with a grain of salt. There's another one called LabDoor. Again, I would just say look into those sources before you fully vet them, okay? That being said, we get Consumer Labs at Emerson too, because they do a lot of additional testing. Testing's very expensive. When we test one product for one parameter, it might cost anywhere from $300 to $1,200 for one test on one product. So we love to see what else is being done because it can help us see what trends of problems are happening in the industry that we might need to be paying more attention to. And so I don't think they're publishing false results. And the times they have, we like one example was a fish oil test result that they did that showed one brand of product to be rancid. And it was one of the top brands in the consumer and in the professional space. It was really shocking. And that brand had to kind of fight to respond to say that they utilized, it was rosemary extract as a preservative. So they wanted a natural preservative, not a chemical preservative, but that the rosemary extract showed up on the testing type that they used as the same compound that is like one of the things they look for rancidity. So it was a false positive result that company had to then kind of battle because the science is complex. So I would just say, be aware, ask questions, utilize it to raise concerns. But if it's a brand that it shocks you to learn, let the brands have an opportunity to respond and provide that to you, because testing finished products can be complex and difficult. And we know that because we do it all the time at Emerson.
Great advice, Jaclyn. Another question is, what do you think of USP certification?
Thank you. USP is another great certification. So that's a US Pharmacopoeia. They don't do all types of dietary supplement products. They do botanicals, and that would be another good certification to look for.
Great. And any opinion on Vitamin World?
Well, they're a retailer. So I think, every retailer is trying to balance selling things that are going to sell and with not getting in trouble for low quality products. I mean, I think that in the retail space, there's more contamination. So I would be conscientious of that, and ask them what they're doing to screen products on the way in the door, because they should have some criteria set and some testing done as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this presentation today, Jaclyn. I just really appreciate you and all Emerson is doing. Emerson Ecologics makes a lot of this easy for the practitioner. And I think that is really one of the goals, for us. So I just want to remind folks that Emerson is one of our annual sponsors. They really help us get education and all of the things that we do to you. And you can go to go.emersonecologics.com/AIHM. And if you sign up for the Wellevate platform for your clinic, we actually get a portion of that, and that helps push forward all of the programs that we do. So please take a look, and it's a really, if you haven't tried it out yet, it's a really great tool for you and your patients. I'd like to invite you all next week. We're very excited to continue with our webinars. We'll be having two guest speakers on health professions and climate action as wellness practice. Dr. Vishnu Lalitha Surapanini and Brenny Doheny will be presenting on the work that's being done with health professionals around some of climate action in the country. So we're really excited about this. This is part of, we just had Earth Day, and this is part of our Earth Day series, is to really bring in information about what other health practitioners are doing and professionals are doing in this space. So we're really excited and hope you join us next week for that. And then just as a reminder to please connect with us at the Academy. For those of you who are our members and fellows, we just love seeing you and having you here each week. If you're thinking about joining, please come to our website and join the interprofessional community. We have wonderful membership benefits for practitioners and just a really engaged community. So we invite you to join at aihm.org/join. Remember to like our YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/AIHM Global. All of our free webinars are posted after we view them within a couple of days, and you can always go back to the YouTube channel and share them with your patients, with your family, or rewatch them for yourselves for free. You can also find us on all the other social media spaces as well at AIHM Global. So, thanks again to Emerson Ecologics, to Dr. Jaclyn Smeaton for this wonderful talk, and we will see you all next week.